All right, welcome everybody. I think we're sort of at a point where it makes sense to issue a reminder and go through the data that there is still no actual evidence that the COVID vaccines approved in the United States have caused even one death, even a single death. And I had people yesterday sending me links to the Joe Rogan Sanjay Gupta interview. I had links to articles based on VAERS reporting, and it just is a good time to refresh what is actually known about the vaccines. Now, this is not a segment about the Russian vaccine. This is not a segment about the Chinese vaccine or what they have or haven't done. I just don't have data that I can look at that I could say with any certitude that is reliable data. I'm not saying anything one way or the other about those vaccines. I just want to be clear that if you're going to email me things about the Russian vaccine, I am doing a segment here specifically about the Pfizer vaccine, the Moderna vaccine, and the Johnson & Johnson vaccines approved and available here in the United States. And on those, there is no clear evidence whatsoever that they have caused any deaths in the United States. Now, this is different than have any vaccinated people died of COVID. Last time, 2 months ago, I did a similar segment with the data we had until then. And people wrote to me and said, David, sir, actually, they didn't say sir, they were less polite. They said, David, you're lying. There are plenty of vaccinated people that have died. That's different. The question here is, have the vaccines caused deaths? A couple of weeks ago, we had a very detailed report from the CDC with the latest data on adverse reactions to the vaccine. Now, it's important to remember, just because someone submitted a report of a death caused by the vaccine to the VAERS system, VAERS, doesn't mean that someone actually died as a result of the vaccine. As the CDC reminds us, and I encourage you, go through this article. We're linking to this a CDC page. Adverse events described on this page have been reported to the VAERS system. VAERS accepts reports of any adverse event following vaccination. That doesn't even mean related to the vaccination. And we'll talk about that in a second. Also, remember that the FDA requires that healthcare providers report deaths that take place after COVID vaccination, even if the healthcare provider has no real reason to think that the death is related to the vaccine. It's just, it happened after the vaccine. Sometimes people die weeks after the vaccine, has nothing to do even with COVID, never mind the vaccine. It's still supposed to be reported and then evaluated. And again, anybody can submit such a report. As it says here, reports of adverse events to VAERS following vaccination, including deaths, do not necessarily mean that a vaccine caused a health problem. So what has the CDC put out? And this is their latest report. It's a couple weeks old now, about vaccine reactions and adverse events. It's a matter of reading through these one by one and understanding them. First, anaphylaxis after COVID-19 vaccination. It's rare. It's occurred in 2 to 5 out of every million vaccinated people in the United States. Severe allergic reactions, including anaphylaxis, can occur after any vaccination. If it occurs, vaccination providers can effectively and immediately treat the reaction. That's not unique to the COVID vaccine, and it is extraordinarily rare and treatable. Okay, thrombosis with thrombocytopenia syndrome after the J&J vaccine is rare. As of October 6th, about 8 days ago, more than 15 million doses of the J&J vaccine were given. There have been 47 reports of people who got the vaccine and later developed TTS, thrombosis with thrombocytopenia syndrome, concentrated among women under 50 years old. Okay? To date, 2 confirmed cases of TTS have been reported with Moderna after 382 million doses. So extraordinarily rare. We then have, as has been the case with other vaccines in the past, GBS, Guillain-Barré syndrome, in people who got J&J. Very rare disorder. 15 million J&J vaccines administered, 228 preliminary reports, and those have to be looked at more closely. Typically men over 50. So we talked about TTS, very rare, concentrated in women under 50 with the J&J. GBS, very rare, concentrated in men over 50 with the J&J. We then heard of myocarditis and pericarditis after COVID-19. Very rare. 1640 reports in VAERS. And again, remember, anybody can submit that. And there's no question there's a bandwagon effect. If people submitting, you should look at what's been submitted to VAERS. 1640 submitted among people under 30. Most cases reported, particularly in adolescent males and young adults, through follow-up, including medical records review. The CDC and FDA have confirmed about half, 926 reports, and the relationship to vaccination is still being investigated. And then reports of deaths. This is a really important thing because VAERS has received 8,600 reports of deaths, but even linking them causally to the vaccine is not something that has been done yet. When you give hundreds of millions of people a vaccine, by sheer actuarial reality, the fact that people die, people are going to die in the days, weeks, and months after receiving a vaccine. That's supposed to be reported to VAERS, even if it's not believed to be because of the vaccine. And there is every reason to believe there are lots of false reports. But it is really important that we go by what the CDC has assessed based on the data. Now, what about blood clots? That's another one that we've been hearing a little bit about. Researchers are still looking at whether there's any connection between J&J and a rare type of blood clot. Very, very few cases still being investigated. And once we have something more definitive on that, we will talk about it. So when you hear, the talking point is basically look at all of the deaths that have been reported. People talk about tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of deaths due to the vaccine. The actual number of deaths reported to the system is 8,600. And there has been no confirmation that it is because of the vaccine. They are deaths that took place after individuals were vaccinated. That's the data. I have no interest in hiding or exaggerating or downplaying anything. That is the data as we know it right now. And with time, we will continue to get updated reports. One of our sponsors is Magic Spoon breakfast cereal, sweet and tasty like the cereals I loved as a kid, but without the sugar or the carbs. Every serving of Magic Spoon has 0 grams of sugar, only 4 net carbs, 140 calories, and packed with 13 grams of protein. Perfect if you're doing keto, perfect if you're doing low carb, great if you're just trying to reduce your excess sugar intake, and because it's packed with protein, it's great before or after a workout. Magic Spoon flavors include cocoa, fruity, frosted, peanut butter, blueberry, and cinnamon. They're bringing back cookies and cream. They're bringing back maple waffle. You can build your own variety box and try them all. Magic Spoon is so confident in the product, if you don't love it as much as I do, they will refund your money, no questions asked. Go to magicspoon.com/Pacman. The link is underneath this video, and you'll get $5 off when you use the promo code Pacman at checkout.